Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking Jupiter in Gemini. It's always really exciting when we have one of our bigger planets shift signs. So for the next 12 months, starting from May 25, May 26 here in Australia, through until June 9, 10 of 2026, for just over 12 months, we have Jupiter gracing us with his presence in a different area of our life. So in this video, we're going to be taking Jupiter through the 12 houses. We're also going to have a little bit of a look at, who is Jupiter and what does he have to offer in the position of detriment. So there can be a little bit of confusion or uncertainty in how to describe or how to work with a planet in detriment. And I have a few things I want to say about that. So I hope that will help you look at Jupiter in general, but particularly Jupiter in Gemini through a different lens. I know I'm biased. I have Jupiter in Gemini on my ascendant. So, I qualify for this. So I hope you get something out of this video. Before we get there, though, I would love to share with you just a few things that are happening over at cast.com, over at my website. You can pick up a copy of my Jupiter in Gemini webinar, which I gave last week. So it's about 2 hours, a really deep dive in all the features of Jupiter in Gemini for the next 12 months, including the aspects that it makes. Of course, we look at, all of the things. The description is in the link rather is in the description box below. Also, we'll be talking a lot more about Jupiter in Gemini in the June installment of the Golden Circle. If you're wondering about what the Golden Circle is all about, it is my astrology membership where I take you through all of the monthly happenings, each and every month, the aspects and, all of that jazz. What it's really good for, who it's really good for, I should say, is if you are pretty decent with your astrology knowledge, like you maybe done a few courses and you feel pretty confident with things, but you just want to get more nuanced with your interpretations, maybe get better at more than just the basic keyword interpretations. Why not take advantage of my almost 20 years of doing astrology? I'll have my 20th anniversary this year and join in that offering. It's a lot of fun there. I really enjoy creating the material for my members every single month. So the link is there below. And of course, if you're newer to astrology and you really want to sort of like learn a lot of the basics, Jupiter and Gemini is a really great time for that because you have the philosophical components of astrology and also the technical being combined for the next 12 months. So year 1 of my astrology program is open for enrollment now. We start June 6. So we go through all the birth chart basics. So by the end of year 1, you'll be able to do natal chart readings. By the end of year 2, which I'll probably launch, I've got to figure out my my program for that. That's when we get into the predictive stuff. So again, link below and you can find out more. I really look forward to seeing you in class, hopefully. Okie dokes, Jupiter in Gemini. Obviously, I'm really excited for this. Come at me, bro. I'm ready. Anything to have some planets out of the 12th house. And I'm sure my fellow Gemini risings watching this video feel the same way. So firstly, let's take a bit of a brief overview of who's Jupiter. And he's definitely more than just, that cosmic Santa Claus. I think some of the growth, expansion, abundance, while that is very true, it's also very reductive to see Jupiter just as that. Jupiter is beneficent, of course. He does bring the growth and the opportunities, but it's not always tangible. It's not like Venus, who will bring, the bottle of wine and the bunch of flowers. Jupiter wants us to expand in ways that are more experiential, more wisdom attracting or wisdom obtaining, I should say. And it's more the growth, expansion, and abundance through experience. Now, there's probably 3 ways I could say that we can do that. That is through learning. That's a given. through travel. And of course, there's a third way, and most of those ways are how should I say this for YouTube? Not always legal. So I'm sure you get my gist, when it comes to altered states and things. But, it can certainly be very helpful if that's your jam and you want to tap into other realms and perspectives and open up your mind in a whole vast array of ways. So Jupiter in its essence really wants to uplift things. It's the high tide raises all boats. It wants to create goodness. That is Jupiter's primary function. It's not a Mars transit. It's not going to bring trouble and obstacles and constant battles to fight. One of the ideas I really love about Jupiter is that it comes along to repair things. And that repair is about sometimes neutralizing something that's bad. It's not bad in of itself, but it's like the neutralizer. And particularly when Jupiter is in detriment, I think that's what we see via transit more often than not. So it can be the idea of dodging a bullet, a blessing in disguise. And sometimes it doesn't feel very abundant during the process. But, hindsight's always 2020, which is the wisdom piece of Jupiter. And you realize, oh, all those things kind of didn't go my way that I wanted, but there was almost this higher power or godlike influence shielding me, protecting me, and neutralizing a bad or eliminating an evil or a situation in my life that wasn't to my highest good. So Jupiter makes perspectives bigger, and therefore you can see how the dots connect. I really love the idea of Jupiter being a planet of structure. And not structure in the way that we often see Saturn spoken about. Saturn is more about the limit, the boundary. What's that thing in Monopoly where they, don't go beyond here type of thing? And it's almost like the gates of the kingdom. But the kingdom itself is the structure. It is the cohesion of the various parts of whom is inside those kingdom walls, right? Jupiter is the parts of life we don't see. It's those cohesive structures around ethics, morality, the law. It's like Saturn is kind of the letter of the law where the law becomes enforced, but Jupiter is the spirit of the law. And when it's in Gemini, that spirit starts, the wholeness of Jupiter, that cohesive element starts to break down. And I mean, I think we can see in various parts of the world where that is definitely a symbol that we're all collectively witnessing. And sometimes that breakdown seems like a very negative thing, and it can be, but sometimes things have to break down before they can be rebuilt. And I think in some respects, that's almost what the whole concept of democracy is built on. We have this spirit of the law, but then that spirit of the law has to continually have dialogue and debate and communication when the moving parts of life and humanity and all of the concepts start to sort of morph and shift and change. As new technology comes into the piece, what do the ethics and morality of those type of things look like when other cultures come into different lands? What does the ethics and morality of look like then? So while there are some cohesive truth, I should say, about what ethics and morality are, there are some things that are just the limit. Then there's also these other components where that one truth can also be perceived by a multiplicity of different perspectives. And so what does that one truth look like when new data, new information, new technology, we have to integrate that in some way, shape, or form. And so that's going to take place on the collective, of course, and that's obvious if you're paying attention. But there's also going to be one area of our life where we have to think, okay, well, according to the house, these are the ethics. This is the structural principle of which, my life is geared around. And what does that look like when it's in a state of flux or change? Or do I still hold the same perspectives, the same truth, the same philosophy on that area of life than what I may have done 12 years ago when Jupiter was last there? So perspectives do change. I am a firm believer that people don't, although I do see it happen. I think it's more that the perspectives change. The perspectives of life can shift, but the structure, the ultimate truth of things, it never changes. So it's these are the questions for the great sages of the historical as well as the modern and future eras. So I just want to talk a little bit about, I'm just looking through all my notes here. There's so much I'd love to share with you, but don't want to make this video too laborious. I want to say one thing though. Jupiter in Gemini, because it's in detriment, it doesn't make it malefic. I think that's heard some people talk about it like that, and that's not possible. A benefic planet cannot, in of its nature, be malefic. Sometimes it may feel that it is, but it's not. I'm just going to say it like that. Because Jupiter does want to bring in the cohesion. And sometimes the concept of repair can sometimes mean that neutralizing of a negative can seem not ideal at the time. Classic example might be you don't get the job that you really wanted and it hits as a blow. But then you might realize that job wouldn't have worked out for you anyway, or maybe the company was dodgy, or it collapsed or something like that. You might not, your marriage may not work out under this transit, for example, and that's devastating at the time, but, it leads to a higher order, a higher purpose in your life. So the concept of cognitive dissonance is going to be huge with Jupiter in Gemini. So if you're not fully aware of what that term means, it's basically like cognitive dissonance is when a new piece of information comes to hand. Are you able to integrate that? Or are you going to shut down something that challenges your existing belief? And so in our collective lives, we're going to be smashed with that. And so this is where the repair comes in. The ability, and this is when we're thinking about any planet in detriment, really, is to think about it from its home planet. So let's take it from Sagittarius, one truth, one quest, one mission, one purpose, that to the point where, yes, it can be inspiring and uplifting and motivating, but it can also become very preachy and very opinionated and very dogmatic. Whereas on the flip side of that, when we look at Jupiter in Gemini, it's a multiplicity of things. It is more than one thing. It's at least two with Gemini. It is a variety of things, and that can be fun. It can be exciting, but it is the antithesis of what Jupiter's trying to do. And so when we come back to the idea of cognitive dissonance, the challenge for Jupiter is, can you change your belief? Can you change your perspective? Can you change your opinion based on new facts coming to hand? Collectively, that's going to be a very big challenge in the next 12 months. And in your personal birth chart, you may start to see that become apparent. And to some people, that will seem like a phase of misfortune or a phase of things not being so great. But every now and then we do have to ask ourselves, if you are an intelligent person, you do have to ask yourself, is everything I've been taught and told ultimately true? If I find new information, if I receive new data, do I have the capacity to wrangle with those concepts? At least entertain them. You know, no one's saying you must change your mind. That would be going into the more Sagittarius / Aquarian areas, but you know, to grapple with things, to wrestle with things. It's interesting at the moment, Jordan Peterson, for example, who is a sun in Gemini with Mercury retrograde in Gemini, is on a speaking tour and has a book coming out soon called We Who Wrestle with God, which is a perfect, I guess, archetype, if you like, for Jupiter in Gemini. And of course, that God doesn't have to be about religion. It can be, oh, it's my fourth house, it's my family, it's the what I'm wrangling with. So the challenge here is how can we wrangle or wrestle or integrate new information on the existing working structures and philosophies of our life? Now, a little pro tip for you, even though it's going to be hard, even though it's going to be a mind stretch, yes, it's going to be distracting, it can be very mentally fatiguing. This is what I've found myself telling clients is do the work. Whatever that work looks like for you, don't gloss over things. Don't, as we say in Australia, she'll be right, mate. It's like get into it, pull apart the pieces, examine them, look at them, be willing, be curious to take on the new data and be brave enough, be courageous enough, and have the integrity, which is such a Jupiter piece, to discard old things if required and then bring in the new. Okay. I could go on and on about this because I have Jupiter in Gemini. I spend my life in this space. So you really want to bring new intelligence into things in a way that doesn't necessarily blow it all up. And again, back to my pro tip, that's the invitation of this year because Jupiter in Gemini is going to be priming Uranus in Gemini. So we're going to have an introductory phase of Uranus in Gemini in 2025 from July to November. So if you don't do the work now, Uranus can really be, look, what could I say about that? It could be the little minefield, the spanner in the spokes. It could be the blip on the radar, although it'd probably be more than a blip. So look at your Jupiter house, sorry, your Gemini house, and start thinking about what philosophies, ideas, concepts need to shift and change in order to maybe repair them so you can move into the Uranus and Gemini phase with the authenticity piece as opposed from the frantic piece. Anyway, that's segueing there. So let's just jump into the houses now. I think I've been rambling on for about 20 minutes, Jupiter in Gemini, but I'm a fan of, I see this in client work actually. I'm a fan of seeing people who have planets ill positioned. So detriment, fall, it gives the planet texture. It's one of my favorite words to describe it because in order to really understand how one thing works, you got to look at its opposite. I think it was Albert Einstein, right? That was like the equal and opposite sort of thing. And so in order to understand Jupiter, when it goes through Mercury's sign, Gemini, we really get to understand Jupiter in a more multiplicity of ways. We get to dissect Jupiter a little bit. We get to ask maybe the questions that Jupiter in Sagittarius doesn't want you to ask. It's like just blindly follow, right? So it's like we can't really understand joy until we've had despair. We don't understand light until we've experienced the dark. We don't understand, you know, hunger until we've been full. We don't understand loss until we've loved. You know, there's so many equal and opposing situations. So this is what we're going to be experiencing a little bit with Jupiter in Gemini. All right, how's time? Aries. Oh, let me share the chart so we can actually move along with this. So I'm going to start with Aries. So Aries will see Jupiter moving through your third house. Now, again, this is going to be a little bit of a throwback in some respects from mid 2012 through to mid 2013. Okay, so you might want to think about what was happening in your life at that time. And because Jupiter is going to be repeating some themes as per the house placement. I quite like the third house. The third house is a little bit underrated. I want to bring back a little bit of joy to the third house. What I like about this, especially when Jupiter is implicated in it, it's about bringing some joy back into the daily rituals and routines. And because when we're thinking about Jupiter, right, we're always thinking about the big thing, the next big break, the next big opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. But usually those things are built on the compounded efforts of the day-to-day work or the day-to-day efforts. And so if you feel like life has got you stuck in a rut a little bit, now let's be honest, many of us are working harder for less right now because of the state of the world and the economy and things like that. Our dollars just don't stretch as far as they used to. So we're all having to do a little bit more. And that can be a bit of a life suck or a little bit less than ideal. But Jupiter in your third house can help you find some meaning into the day-to-day round or the day-to-day stuff. And what's the difference between a ritual and a routine? Ritual is just a routine with meaning. So you can infuse that with Jupiter in Gemini, a little bit more meaning into the mundane. Well, not maybe so much the mundane, although there's a component to that. But it's the little things that you do over time that build success. So this could be an attitude shift as well, like a philosophy shift, a meaning shift in the sense of, are you just going through the motions of your everyday life, or are you doing something with intention and expansion to actually move the needle, as they say? Are you doing little things on the daily that will compound for future growth and success? So you might find this through learning something. There's a real self-development component to the third house because it does form that inferior sextile back to the ascendant. So, the learning, maybe it's the short courses, the webinars you sign up for, or a weekend workshop, or maybe there's a talk in your local area, someone spiritual or religious possibly, or a teacher of some kind comes into your local area and you attend. Okay, maybe if you are a religious person, or maybe even if you're not a religious person, but you decide, well, I want to put more ritual into my day-to-day, which might mean visiting a place of worship. It might mean time in nature. It might mean whatever it means for you. Like maybe it's setting up little altars in your home, or all of those sorts of things. I could go on and on. Whatever sparks your interest, whatever fuels your curiosity in the next 12 months is something you really want to lean into. And of course, sibling dynamics are a part of the third house as well. And, I think you're going to find your local area will be a little bit of a source of abundance and of wisdom too. Now, the second house, so this is for Taurus and Taurus risings. So you've just had Jupiter there in your sign for the last 12 months. So what the challenge is here as Jupiter moves into your second is, what have you learned about yourself that you can now sort of transport into the second and turn that into gravy, so to speak, ship coming in. And if you talk to anyone who's successful, particularly from like a material perspective, it's a belief in themselves, right? It's the belief that they can do, be, have whatever it is that they want to have. So this might be reconfiguring your self-belief around abundance, and that's not just cash, it can be just about the physical, but also getting your head straight around money, or your head straight around having enough, having more than enough. So it might be a really good time to work on like money mentality or money mindset or abundance mindset in general. You might also receive rewards from past efforts. There's that sort of sudden influx of money, rewards, recognition. I also see with Jupiter in the second, sometimes it's about attracting the support of others who are well resourced. And that can be financially. It can also just be attracting people who have the experience or wisdom in some ways that can help elevate and support you. Because the second house is kind of rising up towards the ascendant. And so having Jupiter there can also represent, the sages, the priests, the people of wisdom that come into your sphere and also support you. You might decide that you need to learn about money. No one actually teaches us really about money. You might earn more. You may also spend more. There is a little bit of a problem with Jupiter in the second. Is very easy to think, okay, yep, my ship's coming in, and resting on your laurels of that. But it's also important to perhaps save a bit, like if you're getting a little bit of extra cash flow, what have you, siphon a little bit away for a rainy day. But you can generally experience, more abundance, more flow in that area of your life. So the way you earn, spend, and save will be up for grappling with or figuring out. Maybe you have to break down, like really examine the numbers, and then figure out, the overarching goal or the bigger picture, Jupiter, around finances. So if you are a Gemini rising, this is an exciting transit. Jupiter in the first is always, any planet moving from the 12th into the first is always just such a relief. And so for the next 12 months, so I'm very fidgety today, as always, the next 12 months is really about deconstructing your personal philosophy. It can also be a phase of general luck, the road rising up to meet you, the sun upon your face, the wind upon your back, that Irish blessing stuff. It can be a time where opportunities fall in your lap with a little bit more ease than usual. It can almost have a Midas touch experience. Now, this is usually because when a planet that is large, it's the largest planet, it's expansive, it's optimistic, it's the high tide raises all boats. When it comes into your first house, it's a symbol that you're ready for those things. You're ready for growth. You're ready for expansion. You're ready for more, and whatever more looks like for you. Now, the mutable signs do have something a little bit extra going for them in the next 12 months. And in the case of Gemini, you've also got the planet of relationships and the planet of career, or 10th house, coming into the first. So you might find that there's a ricochet effect of other people and professional life coming into that sphere. I often see that relationship is a big, Jupiter coming into the first, especially for Gemini risings, is a big deal because it shows the planet of other coming into your sphere. So it's like you're expanding into getting to know someone more. You're curious about other people more. Maybe you want to learn more about your career or do some professional development along those lines, right? Of course, in the house of your body, do expect a little bit of weight gain. Whether that's waistline, whether that's pregnancy. For some people, I have seen this happen before, where Jupiter comes into the first house, and it can be a little bit of a buffer if there's an existing illness or an existing problem with the body, right? It can give you perhaps a solution or something, like, if you've got a digestive issue and then you finally figure out, oh, I can't eat this, but I need to eat more of that. Okay, that sort of thing. You know, with an air sign, it could also potentially have something to do with whether it's breathing, a lung stuff, or even the mind. Jupiter coming into your first house is going to bring a whole lot more optionality. So if you've been a little bit stuck, if you've been a little bit internal with those planets moving through the 12th, Jupiter coming into your first house, it's feeling like you're back to variety is the spice of life. You've got options again. But again, discernment is going to be important because not all that's shiny is gold. You know, not all that glitters is gold. So you've got a 12-month period of figuring out maybe who you are, what your personal philosophy is, you know, repair other areas of life that, you know, especially with the 10th and the 7th, that may not be ideal. Repair body, repair mind, and, you know, a lot of self-development, working on the self, being well positioned to really be the captain of your own ship for the next 12 months. It's an exciting time. I'm definitely ready for it myself. So I'm just going to clear this now and we'll move along. So if you're Cancer, you're going to have the next 12 months of Jupiter being the little bit of the monsters under the bed. Whenever I see 12th house, I always get Enter Sandman in my mind because, you know, my love of Metallica, but it's like the monsters under the bed and you've got to have a look there. And I think it was the psychologist Carl Rogers who said, it's not so much it's not so much about our problems, but it's the way we think about our problems is what causes people the most grief. So in the next 12 months, you might be thinking about problems, thinking about those proverbial monsters under the bed, and are they actually problems, or is it the way that I think about them being problems? So it might be about pulling apart and deconstructing my self-talk, like your self-talk. Have you got this sort of Gemini feedback loop in the mind that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you need to address it? So it's a bit like changing your narratives is the opportunity here. That might mean addressing some problems, you know, lifting the lid on things, give them a little bit of oxygen and, you know, feed the beast in the way that works for you. I think there's could be a bit of a mental health component here, mental disturbance or agitation, but Jupiter comes to heal it, okay, or repair it. Um, there's also a possibility for just wanting to be inside the shell. You know, we're talking about Cancer after all. So you might just want to be a little bit more internal or a little bit more alone, needing more time off grid, offline, or just sort of, you know, inside your own shell. I'm a Cancer, so I get that. So travel and learning could also be a possibility here. You know, being away from home, which is a very Cancerian thing. So there might be travel, but it's with a touch of fraughtness. It may not be you know, cocktails and a swim up bar in Indonesia, but it might be travel for religious, spiritual, or healing purposes. Okay, so maybe you decide to go somewhere and do a plant medicine journey or some sort of inner healing work, as opposed to, you know, as I said, cocktails and swim up bars. So there's a touch of fraughtness involved here. You might want to learn about the inner workings of your mind or um, you know, figure things out. So Jupiter in the 12th house is a little bit of a battery recharge phase, because obviously this time in 12 months, we're going to be talking about Jupiter in its exaltation and in your sign. So the work done this year will definitely pay dividends next. Okay, Leo, this is your double luck transit, which is always really nice to see Jupiter come into the 11th. Leos like to be seen in their best light. And so Jupiter, the big planet coming through the 11th, is going to bring that for you. So your friends, your audiences, especially in the social media realm, you know, if you've got a, you know, business accounts online, what have you, your professional alliances, your personal alliances, you know, your friendship groups, your community groups, and all of those sorts of things. So you might start to see expansion in those areas of life, more friends, more followers, more people in your community. If you're actively involved in a club or a community or a charity organization, maybe it's to do with your professional life and your industry, right? There might be some growth or connections to be made. The socializing component of Jupiter in Gemini, with Gemini ruling the 11th. So this is the idea of kind of like really expanding yourself into other networks, either professional or personal, will be not only a source of abundance and joy, but also success as well. You might also question, from a philosophical standpoint, the company that you're keeping. As you grow, as you evolve, as you change, as you have your own sort of individual transits, you might look at Jupiter in the 11th and go, yeah, well, while there's a variety of people in my sphere, both new and old, who are really philosophically aligned with me. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and, make some dramatic changes, but that will probably be more next year's thing with Uranus. But you might see that you're starting to ask the questions. You might shift into new areas, get more curious about the people who are in your life. The 11th house is a very busy house, as is the 11th. And of course, Jupiter's entrance into, sorry, not the 11th, the 7th. And Jupiter's entrance into the 11th is going to trine Pluto straight off the bat. So, other people are going to be a big part of this journey for you. So, go to town. It's going to be a year where a little bit of effort will go a long, long way in terms of expanding your networks in whichever way, shape, or form that looks like for you. A lot of luck, a lot of abundance, things falling into your lap. And that will be as a result of efforts already made. And that's the key difference. If you haven't done the work, that could be a little bit more of a challenge. But, it's never too late to start. So get to work on that before Uranus does the work for you. Okay, so that's the Leos in our life. So if you're Virgo, so again, we've got this like mutable angle influence where Jupiter is going to move into your 10th house, but it also, Jupiter rules the 4th of home and family and the 7th of relationships. And those relationships can be personal as well. So it might be family marriage dynamics that influence your career. Maybe it's the career that you meet the man or you meet the woman and then you buy the house. Anything and everything is always possible, right? Half your luck if that's what you're wanting, if that's what you're wanting. So there's Jupiter in the 10th is your, once in more than a decade opportunity to receive the honor, the recognition, the reputation, the glory. There's something very like royal or benevolent coming into your professional sphere. And if you don't work, it might be about like what you're known for, what the direction of your life is. There's also this idea here where you might be questioning, what is the meaning and purpose of what I'm doing? Okay. You might get a great job offer. You might be in one role or one career, and then another opportunity comes, and then you have to start asking questions. You have to start thinking, oh, what if I did this, or what if I did that? And how would that look for my family life? How might that look for my relationship? Okay, so there's this feedback loop that's, it's strong for us all, but particularly with the mutable angles. New opportunities are definitely coming your way, but the question is, how does that fit with other parts of my life? Maybe you'll have more than one job this year. Not everyone has like a big fancy career. And it might be the realization that in order to support my family or in order to support my partner, I have to do something else, or I have to do two things, or I have to do something more. Or it might be the external factors of your life where you're starting to think, okay, well, I want to do something more with my life than what I'm currently doing. Because Jupiter's also in Mercury's sign and you're Mercury ruled. So there's a real philosophical piece for you here in the next 12 months where it's very much, here's me. And I always get the way that my astrology works for me sometimes is I hear it in music. And it's what I'm hearing is, what's that song called? It's called Schism by Tool. And it's, I know the pieces fit because I watched them fall away. And it's so Jupiter in Gemini, how to pull the pieces apart and then rebuild them. And so for the mutables in general, but also Virgo, with Jupiter coming into the 10th, how does my life direction, how does that fit in with all the other pieces of my life? And so, but generally, it's a really, optimistic, abundant, opportunistic period for you for career growth or figuring out what the true north is of my life. I often see the 10th house as what you do in the world. The ninth house is more about, what it means. And so you've just had Jupiter in Taurus and you figured that out. And now this year is about, okay, well, chasing or questioning or figuring out what those things are. So it's a real mixed bag, I think, for Virgos. And maybe the challenge in a little way is Virgos they tend to sometimes that paralysis analysis, but just getting back into the Gemini side of Mercury and just being more curious and sort of like just get more information. Or maybe it's, I have enough information. Now I just have to say yes to the opportunity. Okie dokes. So our next sign is Libra, lovely Libra. This is a really great transit to have Jupiter in the ninth. Faith, religion, travel, learning. It's a real world is my oyster type of transit. And it's about expanding your horizons physically, metaphorically, possibly that third way I mentioned earlier. But the question is, what is my life all about? Like, what am I doing with myself? This is the classic, Jordan Peterson, like wrestling with God. And that God, it can be a loaded term for some, but it's like the idea of what is meaningful, what is purposeful for me. So there can be some of those underlining questions. Maybe it's exploring different faiths, different philosophies, different avenues of education as well. Maybe you want to learn something that you've always been curious about, more from a perspective of just because you want to, and it may not necessarily be related to anything, right? Maybe you decide to study something or delve into something that really could potentially be a career factor. So say, for example, when I started studying astrology, I just did it because I was just curious. I really wanted to. I was like, yeah, I'm down for this. Sign me up. I had no idea about astrology except that I was a Cancer, and I had no idea of where it would lead. So the fact that Jupiter comes into your ninth, it's almost this sort of destined or world opening up where anything and everything could be possible for you. This may also involve your bucket list, okay? What's on your bucket list the last time Jupiter was there may not be the same now. It's also an opportunity to tick off an item or two of your bucket list, maybe go on a luxury holiday or have an experience that really only comes around about once in a decade. This is a year where you're going to start to figure out your life philosophy, what is meaningful, what is purposeful, what does leading a life with meaning and purpose infused with spirit, infused with faith really means to you. It's a world is your oyster transit. The challenge is which oyster is going to contain the pearl, and what's worth cracking open and spending your time, energy, and effort and resources on, and which ones aren't. Okay, so I feel for Libra and Libra risings, this year is about figuring those things out before Uranus gets there. It's Jupiter in the ninth is is such a really nice transit, actually. So it's a good year if you're a Libra. Scorpio. Okay, this is the white elephant transit in some respects. It's like the death and taxes. It's the house that no one really wants to face. But it's this idea, if you can face it, God can fix it. So it's like this idea of open the Pandora's box, take a look in there, gain some new information that will help formulate your perspectives on things to do with maybe longer term finance, your debt, your mortgages, your loans, your investments, your savings, your superannuation, 401, and all that sort of stuff that you have in the US, for example. So there's a lot of healing that can come through with new perspectives. Now, we're talking about Scorpio rising, and one of the things with about Scorpio is they're really seeking a deep intimacy. Now, Jupiter is going to expand a part of life where they don't see it. You know, the eighth house, you can't see it from the position of the ascendant. It's in aversion. So you're being asked to be open and curious and, you know, dive into the parts of life that are your proverbial white elephant. So with all the energy that's been in Taurus and in your seventh house, this is maybe, you know, if you relationships have been formed or they've changed or they've split, whatever the case may be, this is the deep intimacy, the healing, the connection. Maybe it's about learning more about yourself and, you know, why did that relationship not work out? Maybe the relationship did work out and you're taking it to the next level. And what does that mean in terms of, you know, the intimacy of connection, but also the entanglements around finance and your stuff, my stuff kind of thing. So it is, you know, if you're looking to expand your debt, for example, maybe you want to take on a mortgage or buy a new car, or you need to obtain credit, can be a really good transit for that. You might be the lucky recipient of your partner's increase of income, with the eighth being the second from the seventh. So there is a certain level of abundance or opportunity that can come from either, you know, doing that work, you know, the Pandora's box, white elephant stuff, or teaming up, joining forces with another human. And that doesn't have to be in terms of relationship and marriage, but it could also be in business, like joining forces with another person who might be well resourced that can help you in business. You know, you might be you know, the face of the business, or you might be the person with the know-how, but somebody else, you know, might be the financial partner or something along those lines. If money is something that you need to face, you know, as I said, what you can face, God can fix. So know your numbers, face the things, have some faith, be optimistic, get curious, of course, like the Taurus risings with Gemini coming into the second, get curious about what the longer term finances, the entanglements around emotions and money, what it is all about for you. Sag, relationships. So if you're a Sagittarius, your planet is moving into the seventh house. So this is a little bit similar to Gemini, but obviously in reverse. Of course, we've got the the mutable angle situation happening again, where Jupiter's moving into the seventh, and Jupiter for Sag rules your ascendant and also your fourth. So there's potential for a lot of expansion and growth, meeting new people. You can expect a lot more people coming into your sphere in the next 12 months. Now, this could be from an intimate or relationship situation. You might meet someone that's worth getting to know. That might be a longer term partner. You might take on a business partner because you know, the ruler of the seventh house also rules the 10th, and Jupiter itself rules the ascendant and the IC. So there's this kind of, when we're talking about the angles, you've got to think about them like four legs of a chair. And particularly when we're talking, Jupiter and the mutables, just the way that their angles are configured, that the four legs of the chair, where there's activity in one, there's going to be activity in the others. So relationships might be sort of the leg of that chair, which changes the other legs of the chair. So for some Sagittarius risings, of course, that might mean that if a relationship or a marriage or a business partnership has been less than ideal, Jupiter's role to repair that might actually mean there's a separation. Now, you might become it could make existing problems bigger, where you might have to enlist, new information, new perspectives. This could be counseling. This could be learning about your partner, getting more curious about them, their needs, changing your perspectives on relationships. It's sometimes Sag is like, this is the way things should be, whereas Jupiter in Gemini, like, hey, but this is how it could be. Why don't you look at it from this perspective? So that could be the challenge for Jupiter in Gemini for Sag rising. So it's like, do the relationship work now. So when Uranus comes in next year, it has the potential to be a little bit more of a gentle influence or a more authentic influence. I don't know if Uranus can necessarily be gentle, but there still might be some tremors, but you can at least avoid a big earthquake. Now, Jupiter coming into the 7th can also mean, again, people with skills, wisdom, experience could help you in other areas of life. So it may not necessarily be romantic or business, just people like mentors or guides or someone that uplifts and inspires you can be really possible. So it can be a very busy year where you actively are putting yourself in the sphere of other people that will teach you. You will teach them, where you can exchange. And therefore, you're growing this year through relationships. Capricorn, this is going to be an interesting year because Jupiter coming through the 6th sort of has like this intern vibe, where you might have to, instead of, I know that it's a very reductive for Capricorn, but instead of always like climbing or building to get to the next summit, to get to the next peak, this is more of a transit where you might have to take a sideways step or a horizontal move before you can move ahead again. So this could mean you need to update skills. This might mean a year of having to be an apprentice or an intern or take a lower level job in order to gain the experience you might need to be able to take the next level, which will happen, of course, when Jupiter arrives in Cancer. This could also bring the realization about needing to take care of your body and your mind, because it's still an air sign there. So health, wellness, it might mean there's a diagnosis, but there's also a remedy or a treatment with Jupiter there. It might also mean that you gain a new pet. Animals become a part of your life. Caring for others, it might be through your skills, wisdom, and experiences that you're able to offer that to other people to help them. There can be this idea where maybe you're taking care of the sick or helping the sick or offering support to people who are like less fortunate than yourself. So it might be, helping out a homeless guy or donating some money to pets, or not pets, but, a cat shelter or something along those lines. There's a lot of behind the scenes energy this year. So it might mean, you've got your full-time job and then you have to do study on the side. It might mean you've got your full-time job, but then you're supporting someone else. And that could be maybe children, elderly parents, a neighbor. It could be anyone, right? it can be just a very busy year, a lot of activity, but you also need to be careful. Is the activity achievement? And that sometimes is a thing with Jupiter in Gemini in general, because it has a more of a diffused and scattered energy. So there's this idea here that there's a sideways step to success, which might mean you have to take a downgrade, or you'll be doing double the effort for half the result, but it will pay off. And that's the good thing about being a Capricorn rising, always working with the long term in mind. You're willing to make that sacrifice. So it can be a very busy year where a lot can be achieved, but you just may not receive the results of that or see the results of that this year. Okay, Aquarius. I think this is potentially really exciting. I mean, obviously, Aquarius, it's maybe not the most fun ascendant to have at the moment, as Pluto's sort of been going in and out. No doubt you've had some, fairly transformative experiences thus far. And even if you don't have any planets, or the degree of your ascendant is not close to this 0, 1, or 2 of Aquarius, no doubt you're perhaps just feeling the gravity, the gravitas of a Pluto transit. And so you might be feeling a little bit impending doom, or, it's just a bit daunting. And because we're talking Aquarius, they don't want to change. And Pluto's all about that. It pulls you, another Tool song called Undertow. It's like pulls you down into the current, into the underworld, and brings you back up. And that's the Jupiter piece, the buoy, if you're American, I think you pronounce it that way, in the ocean that sort of rises up. And that's what Jupiter's going to do for you. You've been pulled down into the undertow, into the undercurrent, and then Jupiter is the elevation piece. And so this can remind you, I should say, and bring fun, joy, pleasure, romance, children. It might improve your sex life if you've had a dry spell, right? So all the things that are pleasurable, there's going to be more of it. The fifth house is like the house that says, well, what do you like to do with yourself when the bills are done or the bills are paid and the jobs are done? So Jupiter comes along and says, hey, do more of that. So you might find that while there's been a little bit of turbulence with Pluto, there's some benevolence in it. You might have had a personally transformative experience since we had the grand conjunction in December 2020. Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, now Pluto in Aquarius, and you're like, oh my God. Now you might start to feel, oh, okay, things are shifting, things are working back in my favor. So, the life-changing journey might be the arrival of a child. It might be the kindling of a romance, a new romance that turns into a life-changing experience. Maybe if your current relationship has been experiencing the effects of the Pluto transit in your first, Jupiter can remind you of the joy and the abundance and the benevolence of, dating your partner again, getting back into having experiences together, as opposed to perhaps being ships passing in the night. So, whatever it is that you like to do more of it. That's your invitation this year. Have fun. That might mean a few luxury experiences, booking tickets to all the Metallica concerts, or if you really enjoy sports, buy box seat tickets to whatever sport you like. Maybe you decided, hey, I've always wanted to take guitar lessons, or I've wanted to learn to paint, or I've wanted to learn whatever it is you've wanted to learn for pleasure, for a hobby, for fun. And this is what I feel a lot of people have lost the art of having a hobby. Everything's a sideline project or a hustle or what have you, or every little part of life becomes an identity. Someone does a course in one thing and that becomes their Instagram handle, which is fine. But what about just doing something because you just enjoy doing it and you're going to be unapologetic about it? You know, let's bring back hobbies. And that might also be something like Jupiter's gift for the transformative, potentially harrowing Pluto transit. Okay, so hopefully that's helped sweeten up the Aquarians out there. Now, Pisces. It's your home zone. Okay, so again, we've got the mutable sign. Your ascending ruler, so I'm about to sneeze, is coming into your fourth house. Oh, excuse me. Coming into your fourth. And so it's almost like home is where the heart is. And so there's going to be a focus on your domestic life. This might mean the acquisition of more real estate, if you've got some, or maybe you get your first real estate purchase. Maybe you decide to upgrade your postcode or zip code if you're in the US. You might decide to, yeah, you know, let's renovate that kitchen, or let's change the window coverings, or whatever it is. You know, there might be some, you know, luxury updates that you'll do to your home. There might also be a little bit more of a philosophical piece around the lineage you're from. Okay, so I see a lot of connections with the fourth house and lineage, inheritances, ancestry. And as Jupiter comes through there, you might get increasingly curious about, who am I? Where am I from? What do my family believe? What's our religious or spiritual threads? What happened to my ancestors? You know, stuff like that. You might find that your family expands in terms of maybe relatives come and stay with you. Maybe your actual family expands as well. You know, you might get a pet, you might get an additional sibling. You might have a child of your own during this period of time. But the idea here is to think differently. And so that might be a little bit of the challenge, where the exploration of family dynamics. What does family mean to me? Does family mean what it's always meant to me? What if my philosophy, perspectives, who I am is different to what I'm from or where I've been? So this could also be a little bit of this inner wrangling, shifts in the dynamics of family, your living situation. So it could just be flatmates or whoever you share your living space with. You might decide that oh, you know, my rent's getting so expensive, I need to take on a flatmate or someone to rent a room, you know, things like that. So yeah, there's a lot that can happen when the sort of foundation of your life is going through a process of expansion. And it's a real deep like not an interweaving, but it's this deep questioning the foundation of your life. So, you know, you might be single and don't want to be anymore, and you want to change what your family life looks like, what your foundation looks like. And so, like a house itself, it's, you know, usually built on a slab of some description, and it's from there the rest of the house is built on. You can't build the roof until the slab is done, right? So this year might be about exploring like the meaning of the foundation of your own life. And are you where you actually want to be? Are you in the location that you actually want to be? Maybe you need to change. Maybe you want to travel for 1 year. Maybe you'd like to buy a house, but you're not sure where. Maybe you can't afford it. So you decide to, I'm going to rent for 12 months in this part of town, see if I like it. So there might be a little bit of a sort of not an experimental, but more of a, I'm going to be open to any and all options when it comes to this area of my life in 2024 and into 2025. So there we have it. That is Jupiter in Gemini. There is so much I can talk about this one. And hopefully this video has given you a bit of a heads up, maybe a little bit more to chew on with Jupiter in Gemini, and hopefully to see the benefits of what it is to actually have a planet in detriment, and the texture and the multiplicity of things when it comes through various houses. And then, of course, collectively, pulling apart structure, faith, philosophy, cohesion, and what do ethics and morality really look like. So I could go on, but I hoped you enjoyed this. Again, Contemporary Astrology Program starts June 6th. The Golden Circle, we'll be talking more about Jupiter and Gemini, Jupiter and Pluto, the upcoming squares to Saturn. That's all inside the Golden Circle. And of course, our readings are available as well if you want to have more of a personal insight into the next 12 months with Jupiter in Gemini. So bye for now. I'd love to hear about which house it is for you, of course. Tell me what you're excited about, what you're not excited about, maybe what happened last time when Jupiter was in Gemini. And in sharing your experiences can also help other watchers of this channel get an understanding of what they're in for as well. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video, and best of luck with Jupiter in Gemini.